Well, good morning, everyone. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg Center here in Washington, D.C., the heart of our nation's capital. Johns Hopkins has built this center. We didn't build this center, but we have acquired this center to have a permanent home in Washington, D.C. in order to deepen our commitment to delivering evidence-based research in order to fuel discovery, democracy, and global dialogue. So all of this builds on Hopkins' history as being the nation's first research university. And so therefore, the Bloomberg Center will serve as a nexus for trusted academic experts, such as you and ourselves, and global leaders, policymakers, and of course, our superb academic students to provide multidisciplinary expertise to address important challenges like offshore wind energy, and to provide objectivity to decision makers, all while educating our future civic leaders. So I have some numbers up here, giving you a little bit of information about Johns Hopkins. I had mentioned that Hopkins is the nation's first research university. It was founded in 1876 based on the European Research Institution model. Now, I'm a relatively new faculty member at Johns Hopkins. I'm the Bloomberg Distinguished Professor of Atmospheric Science and Wind Energy, and I joined this past summer. And one of the first questions that people would ask me was, who were Johns and who was Hopkins? So I wanted to clarify, if you had also wondered about this, that Johns Hopkins is actually the complete name of the American entrepreneur and Quaker philanthropist who gave the largest philanthropic gift in the United States up to that point in order to found our campus in Baltimore. So since then, the university has led many other universities, specifically in annual research and development expenditures for over 4 consecutive decades, as you can see up here. And some of the other interesting numbers about the university that we like to talk about also appear here. And I'll emphasize the federal research grants, and I am very happy to point out that a mighty and growing part of that research grants is related to renewable energy and wind energy, and in particular, offshore wind energy. Some of that research funding comes from NOWRDC, the National Offshore Wind Research and Development Consortium, which we are all here to discuss over the next 2 days. And I think it's important to share some of the numbers related to NOWRDC. So since 2018, so this is a relatively young organization, NOWRDC has supported essential research for improving different aspects of the offshore wind industry in the United States, addressing critical questions in structural engineering, operations and maintenance, and safety issues, supplies and logistics, matters that are near and dear to my heart, wind resource and site characterization, as well as important questions in integrating offshore wind into our electrical power systems and addressing environmental challenges. So all of these studies are critical for reducing the levelized cost of electricity, increasing the annual energy production, improving safety, building a robust and reliable domestic supply chain, and of course mitigating environmental impacts for the nascent offshore wind industry. And many different types of institutions, academia, national labs, and industry all participate in NOWRDC-sponsored research. So I'm here representing one of those institutions. In addition to representing Hopkins at large, I'm also part of the Ralph O'Connor Sustainable Energy Institute, or ROSI, at Hopkins, where we focus on research, education, and translation for the energy transition. So we do a lot more than just wind, but of course wind is one of my favorite parts. We do a lot of exciting work with our excellent students and researchers, and our Wind Energy Nexus is rapidly growing in collaboration with our colleagues who are looking at grid and storage, solar, carbon, and other important aspects for the energy transition. So I'll just take a moment to highlight wind. So we have brought experts from across the university in atmospheric science, in fluid dynamics, and electrical, mechanical, and civil engineering, all to address important questions in wind energy, and in particular offshore wind energy. And of course, we do all of this work in collaboration with our partners in industry and in national labs, some of whom are listed here, but not all of whom. So as you know, wind has a lot of really exciting and interesting problems, and we can address these most easily in collaboration with each other. So thinking about collaboration, I'd like to point out that NOWRDC has supported many smaller projects that have grown into larger research consortiums. So I wanted to highlight ARROW, the Academic Center for Reliability and Resilience in Offshore Wind, which is a very large group of collaborating universities and national laboratories. ARROW was stood up earlier this year, and we plan to, at least in the next 5 years, educate, train, and prepare more than 1,000 professionals in different aspects of offshore wind energy to address the upcoming challenges that we will be trying to resolve to ensure that offshore wind can provide a vital component of electricity for the nation moving forward. And Professor Sanjay Arwadi is here today, and he's leading ARROW with a lot of help from colleagues in other locations. So ARROW has many research projects in it, and some of those collaborations were started and supported by efforts funded by NOWRDC. And one of the things that I really like about NOWRDC's approach is that it tries to address problems that are relevant to many different practitioners within the industry. And so one example here that I wanted to highlight is the challenge of tropical cyclones. So many of you are familiar with these maps of, and I think these might be a little bit older maps at this point, of the US offshore wind call areas and lease areas in the North Atlantic, the South Atlantic, and the Gulf of Mexico. So from an atmospheric science perspective, we look at this and we go, oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of tropical cyclones that will be interacting with those areas. And so this is the historical map of tropical cyclones collected by NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And one important thing to remember is that if we put our boxes of our wind and wind lease areas over on this tropical cyclone map, you can see that there are many different areas of intersection. And unfortunately, the return period of many tropical cyclones is on the order of the lifetime of what we expect for a wind plant. So it's really important for everyone who is invested in offshore wind to deal with tropical cyclones. And so NOWRDC has supported 2 phases now of the OWIND project. So OWIND is a larger consortium, including Hopkins, and phase 2 participants are also listed here. My role in that project was, from the atmospheric science perspective, to try to address unknown factors about how the wind will actually vary in a tropical cyclone situation. So I am a professor, so there's a rule that I have to give an equation in every talk that I give. So this is your equation, but if you're not an atmospheric scientist or an engineer, don't worry about this, because it's just a simple equation that describes the shape of the wind profile. And the important number is this character alpha here that tells us how dramatic is that shape of that profile increasing or decreasing. Now the standards that we use for designing offshore wind turbines assume a particular value, but we can do simulations of the atmosphere to actually see what that value is. And so one of my former PhD students, Miguel Sanchez Gomez, designed and carried out some beautiful fluid dynamic simulations at both a relatively inexpensive coarse mesoscale and a beautiful, highly resolved Largetti simulation scale in order for us to actually quantify what that alpha parameter should be. So what we see here is just a probability distribution function. So the number of data points is on the y-axis, and the actual value of alpha is here on the x-axis. And this vertical line is what the standards are expecting to see. And you can see that for all of the individual storms that he simulated, the different categories of tropical cyclones, the Largetti simulations all tell us that that value of alpha, the value of the shear parameter, should be much larger. And unfortunately, the other thing that he showed us was that if we use the much less expensive mesoscale simulations, we can dramatically underestimate that. And so now we're working with our colleagues in structural engineering to try to take this information and build this into how we think about designing turbines better for these situations. So the OWIND project is just one of many, and if you are excited about OWIND, you should definitely attend Professor Andy Meyer's presentation tomorrow morning. But there are one of many exciting projects that NOWRDC has supported in order to address important challenges in offshore wind. And so Julian Fraze will be telling us later today at lunch, I think, about some of the impact metrics from NOWRDC investments. But I really liked this particular figure here, which shows how many of these projects have directly addressed improving the annual energy production, or reducing risk over the course of project lifetime, or reducing capital expenditures or operating expenditures for offshore wind. It's really important to be able to connect our work directly to making an impact, and that is what NOWRDC has done. So I think it's going to be a fun couple of days looking at all of these important projects. But the other great thing about a meeting like this is not just hearing about other work and getting ideas for the next stage of work that should happen going forward, but we are here to actually talk to each other. And I know that many of us like to see our colleagues who we don't often see from other places, but this is a really rare opportunity to meet new people. And so I want to emphasize that at the coffee breaks, at the lunch break, at the networking reception, please try really hard to talk to one person who you don't know. It's amazing how many very productive relationships and collaborations just in my career have started with casual conversations. So take advantage of the opportunities that we have here in this relatively close-knit forum to think about things going forward. Okay, I feel like I'm a professor and I can make that a homework assignment, but I'm not sure that that's really going to resonate. But please try to do that. I think you'll be happy if you do. Okay, so now I'm very excited to bring to the stage Jeff Marutian. Jeff is a Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy here in DC at the US Department of Energy. And so in this role, Jeff has really been a champion for us in advocating the work that we do in unlocking the vast national potential of offshore wind, and in particular, floating offshore wind. I think we've all seen significant investments in floating offshore wind recently, and that's in no small part due to Jeff's efforts. Before that, he previously served as a senior advisor to Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm and as a special assistant to the president under the Biden administration. Before that, Jeff also served as the director of the District Department of Transportation, where he led the adoption of sustainable transportation technologies and oversaw more than $4 billion of critical infrastructure and utility projects, including the reconstruction of the historic Federal Douglass Memorial Bridge. And just as an aside, there's also a very large geosciences conference happening in DC this week, the American Geophysical Union, and I had dinner with some European colleagues last night who commented repeatedly on how nice DC was to get around on a bicycle now. And I think a lot of that is due to Jeff's efforts. So Jeff is also an alumnus of the George Washington University, where he serves as an adjunct faculty member in the Trachtenberg School of Public Policy and Administration. So we're very excited to have the privilege of having Jeff with us here today. So please join me in a round of applause for Jeff Marutian.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Julie, so much for those words, and also for letting me know after 30 years of living in DC what Johns Hopkins actually is. It is something that I've always wondered, but was always too afraid to just look up. It's great to see all of you. I have seen some of you in the past week at our most recent, very successful Deploy 24 summit, which our Loan Programs Office at the Department of Energy put on. And one of the core themes and takeaways of that convening, which was a clean energy industry-wide opportunity for academics, for industry leaders, folks really across the clean energy spectrum to come together. One of the key takeaways was the importance of collaboration, not just from the public and private sectors, but really squarely with academia, with research consortia, with other folks who have been really driving the research and development in industries across the board for decades. And so I am very proud and privileged to represent the United States Department of Energy. And in my office, the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, we have a number of technology areas that have really been core to the clean energy transition over the past several decades. One of them, of course, is our Wind Energy Technologies Office. The leader of that office is here, Eric Lance. Eric, wave your hand. Awesome. So Eric is one of the great leaders in this country, if I can take that liberty and say that, who's been helping to drive and advance the federal government's efforts towards wind energy. And for us right now in the Biden-Harris administration, it is very clearly an inflection point, an opportunity for us to look back on the progress that we've made over the past several years and to help assess what the landscape looks like going forward. So I just want to take a moment to talk about a few of the things that make me incredibly optimistic about the future of wind energy, in particular offshore wind energy. And I should say, and I should have said at the outset, that I bring greetings from the person who I think is probably the greatest champion of wind energy technology in our government and in the country right now, and that's our Secretary, Jennifer Granholm, who I think all of you know has been somebody who's been an advocate for this type of work and for our ability to utilize government resources to help fund research and development across the spectrum. That's why we are such strong champions of the work that's happening across our 17 national labs, especially the work that's happening at the National Renewable Energy Lab, which is our lab and the place where so much of the R&D is taking place that's funded by the government. But it's also why we're so proud of efforts like this that have brought folks together from across industry, from across academia, because we know, and as we often say in this administration, that in order to make real progress, in order to see actual liftoff, commercial viability for technologies across the board, we need not only for the public sector to lead, or the private sector to lead, but we need the government to enable this type of deployment. And so that's what we have seen over and over the past several years. That's why clean energy system-wide, we've seen upwards of 900 new manufacturing facilities. It's why clean energy jobs are hiring at double the rate of the rest of the economy. And it's why at the end of the year, we will have added more than 30 Hoover Dams worth of clean power to our national grid. So we have a lot to be proud of, but certainly we know that there's a lot more work to do. And so our department has invested not only in consortia and programs like NOWRDC, but we've invested in things like our commercial liftoff report for offshore wind energy. Our Earthshot, which is focused on bringing the cost down of the wide spectrum of technologies that we know are going to be key in order to achieve that commercial liftoff. And we're focused on driving more and more collaboration. And I've got to say that this is a really proud moment for me to be here at the 5th symposium. Sorry, Bob, I stole your line there. Because this is proof positive of the tremendous amount of work that can be done with significant, but also in the grand scheme, resources that really need, that require creativity. The Department of Energy has funded this effort with substantive resources, but you know as well as I know that there's not enough, there would never be enough to actually get what's needed to achieve with just one funding opportunity. You have to be creative, you have to pursue resources from across a number of different avenues, and you need to move pretty quickly. And this is really proof of the ability to do that well and effectively. I am really impressed to see the number of solicitations that this organization has put forward in a relatively short amount of time, the impact that those solicitations have had, and I know will continue to have going forward. And I'm particularly, and this is something that Julie mentioned, I think it's so, from my vantage point, so important to note that one of the greatest challenge, if not the greatest challenge that I see from where I sit is workforce and training the future of our clean energy workforce from across the spectrum. The folks who are designing and developing technologies, the folks who are helping to finance and fund those technologies, the leaders who are going to help advocate them from their state legislative seats. Those are all things that are so critical, and it takes folks like many of you in this room to train those leaders, to get them inspired to enter into this segment of the economy, and to weather through some of the moments where we would sometimes want to just sort of drive past quickly. So I've got to say that I'm proud of the work that's happening here, and I know it will continue. And the Department of Energy, through Eric's leadership and through our team at the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, will continue to be strong champions of this partnership. So I want to thank you so much, and I know that our team very much looks forward to future collaboration. Thank you.
Morning. Thank you so much, Jeff. We're really fortunate to have you jumpstart the symposium with those remarks, and thank you again to Julie for kicking us off. It's great to be here today. I would like to welcome all of you here to the room, and those of you that are joining us virtually as well. My name is Lindy Heiss-Dutton, and I am the Executive Director of NOWRDC. And I'll talk a little bit later about kind of the consortium and what we've been working on. But for now, I have the great pleasure of welcoming our illustrious leader to the stage. So Robert Cattell was formerly the chairman and CEO of Keyspan, and actually I'm realizing I should, nope, okay, we're here, of Keyspan Corporation and Keyspan Energy Delivery, the former Brooklyn Union. His career with Brooklyn Union started in 1958, and he became chairman of National Grid US and the deputy chairman of National Grid PLC following the acquisition of National Grid by Keyspan Corporation. Besides serving as NOWRDC's president and chairman, he also currently serves as the chairman of the board of the Advanced Energy Research and Technology Center at Stony Brook University and as the chair emeritus of the Cristo Rey Brooklyn High School. We could be here all day if I tried to list off all of the things that Bob has done in his career and all of the incredible organizations that he has led and currently serves. So I'm just going to let his accomplishments speak for themselves and end by acknowledging that Bob received both his bachelor's and master's degree in mechanical engineering from the City College of New York and is a registered professional engineer. He attended Columbia University's Executive Development Program and the Advanced Management Program at Harvard Business School. NOWRDC has been incredibly fortunate to have Bob Cattell at the helm, so please join me in welcoming him to the stage. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Lindy, for that very nice introduction. I'm glad you kept it short. You know, when she mentioned the fact that I started with the Brooklyn Union Gas Company in 1958, it always kind of gives me a little bit of a pause because I was only 6 years old when I started. So, of course, if you do the math. No, but seriously, it's a pleasure for me to be here this morning and to have an opportunity to address this group. I'd like to thank Julie for your hospitality and also for the history lesson. I did not know about John Hopkins. I guess we don't have to discuss who Bloomberg is. I guess everybody knows who Bloomberg is. But seriously, and Jeff, thank you for your remarks and the support that you've given this consortium from the very beginning. As Lindy mentioned, I'm Bob Cattell, and I have the honor of being the chairman of the National Offshore Wind Research and Development Consortium. And I'd like to add my welcome to, as Jeff stole my thunder, our fifth consortium. Glad we have somebody who knows the technology. Thank you, Julie. And it is a significant milestone. It's hard to believe that the consortium has been in existence just about 6 years now. And I think this is another significant milestone in the development of offshore wind in the United States in particular. I'm certainly impressed by the diverse group of attendees. We have representatives here from the offshore wind developers, supply chain experts, industry leaders, government representatives, utilities, and our international partners. So it's quite a diverse group, and the word collaboration has been mentioned once at least, and will be mentioned a number of times. Your collective expertise and your contributions have been key to the progress that we celebrate today, and the challenges that we'll tackle together. It's been a bit of a remarkable journey, particularly for me, who is a traditional utility energy guy, to kind of gravitate, if that's the right word, into the renewable space with my role at Stony Brook and, of course, with the consortium. As I mentioned, we launched the consortium about 6 years ago, and I could not have imagined the impact that this organization and its projects would have on the offshore wind sector. When we started, the offshore wind industry in the United States was in its infancy. It had enormous potential, but limited domestic infrastructure, supply chain, and of course R&D resources. The consortium was formed by a partnership between the Department of Energy and NYSERDA, New York State, and its vision was to catalyze innovation, drive solution to industry challenges, and position the U.S. as a leader in offshore wind. The consortium formed a board consisting of major offshore wind developers, a number of state governments, utility representatives, universities, and respected energy experts. So it was quite a diverse and very, very illustrious board. The representatives developed a research roadmap. We had to decide what our plan was going to be going forward, and we wanted to address the key areas of opportunity to reduce, basically the goal was to reduce the long-term cost of offshore wind. It established an R&D committee, which was chaired by a representative of the Carbon Trust. Carbon Trust was an organization with great experience in the offshore wind industry in Europe, so we brought some of that as well. The consortium, as was mentioned, I think, had 4 competitive solicitations, which were evaluated by the R&D committee and has awarded over 40 million. I think it's close to 50 million, Lindy, now that we've awarded in through these competitive solicitations. So it's really worked, and you'll hear a little bit more about that. The awarded projects focused on a number of important areas, including supply chain development, vessel and construction innovations, advanced technology and manufacturing, modeling, engineering, resilience, and environmental stewardship. So we try to cover the waterfront, so to speak. The research has resulted in tangible outcomes, and we see projects being built with some of the technologies that originated from the consortium-funded R&D. And as Julie mentioned, we have just published our first impact metrics, and focusing on a number of areas: technology readiness, risk reduction, and also CapEx reduction. So we have really seen an impact of the research that we've done, and we're quite proud of that. The industry is stronger, more innovative, and increasing in capability of meeting U.S. energy and economic goals. It is sharing knowledge with other countries and co-developing technologies for deployment in U.S. waters. It has developed an innovative ecosystem, engaging with accelerator programs to support startups and emerging technologies, and an offshore wind test infrastructure, which invests in testing and validation facilities that position the U.S. as a global leader in offshore wind engineering. The progress that we have made is inspiring, but it's clear its mission is not complete. The next 5 years will not only define this industry, but our ability to meet the nation's clean energy and economic goals. And I think your presence here today is proof of our collaborative commitment to this future. Offshore wind offers a unique opportunity to add clean, reliable power to the grid, create tens of thousands of jobs, high-quality jobs, and we can establish the U.S. as a global leader in renewable energy innovation. While the industry is facing winds of change, we have a real offshore wind industry. And I want to emphasize that. We do have an offshore wind industry. To date, the offshore wind industry has created thousands of new jobs and $40 billion of new investment in the U.S., with $24 billion in direct investments towards manufacturing, vessel building, shipyard upgrades, port infrastructure, transmission planning and construction, and workforce development across 39 both red and blue states. I know of no other industry that has had such a beneficial impact on the U.S. economy in such a short period of time. Offshore wind is now a critical part of the U.S. energy independence and energy future. And states that you'll hear from in this symposium depend on this energy that will come from offshore wind to meet new electricity demands in a cost-effective and reliable way. The consortium is a proven model of success, demonstrated in its most recent competitive solicitation, which brought together over $10 million in funding from 5 state and federal agencies, demonstrating a model of effective collaboration between government, industry, and R&D organizations. This recognition of the consortium has allowed it to expand internationally. Groups include the government and industry leaders whose support has been essential in advancing the field. This symposium is more than just a celebration of progress. It's a call to action. Together, we can overcome the challenges ahead, enrich the immense potential of offshore wind, and create a future defined by clean energy, economic prosperity, and environmental sustainability. This will be accomplished through collaboration and sharing of ideas to shape the future of offshore wind. I'm excited to see what we will accomplish together in the next couple of days and the next 5 years and ahead. I'd like to close by thanking the consortium's partners, its dedicated staff, small, very hardworking, great group, and the innovators driving change in offshore wind. The work we do here together is transformative for our industry, our communities, and our nation. Thank you for your attendance. We welcome your collaborative input and look to hear from you going forward. Thank you very much.
So I've asked Bob to stay up here for a moment because I have something for him. So as many of you know, Bob has been the founding chair and president and has been instrumental in building our organization and has worked tirelessly over the last 6 years in our leadership. Unfortunately for us, his term as chair ends in about 2 months. We've extended it a little bit. Bob's graciously agreed to stay as chair to our next board meeting till we can find someone to fill his shoes. So on behalf of NOWRDC, we wanted to present him with this award that says, if I can read this, with deepest appreciation to your unwavering commitment and service to NOWRDC. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's very heavy. All right. Well, thank you again, Bob, for your remarks and for being here with us today. We're really happy to have you. I'm now pleased to bring to the stage Congressman Dan Goldman. Congressman Goldman proudly represents the 10th District of New York and is a member of the Congressional Offshore Wind Caucus. In 2023, he called on the Department of Interior to deliver funding to the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management to ensure the timely approval of offshore wind energy projects. He's a member of the Sustainable Energy and Environment Coalition and is a large supporter of the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal, the future staging location of Empire Wind 1. Please join me in welcoming Congressman Goldman to the stage.
Thanks very much, Lindy, and it's great to be here with all of you. Bob, I want to thank you as well for your forethought and imagination in creating this consortium, because this is how we successfully move into the renewable energy space. And to have so many people from so many different parts of the industry together, brainstorming, working together is exactly how we fine-tune the industry and make it really not only workable, but desirable. And I'm grateful just to be able to talk to you a little bit about my experience with offshore wind, and especially the Empire Wind 1, as well as where I think we can go, especially during some turbulent times, potentially in the next 4 years. As Lindy mentioned, I'm finishing up my first term as a representative in Manhattan, Lower Manhattan and Brooklyn. And I'm a proud member of the Offshore Wind Caucus, trying to build that out in a bipartisan way. And I'm a huge believer in the industry. And it's really an honor to be here today with all of you. There's no question that the renewable energy space is facing an uncertain future as we prepare for a second Trump administration. But I think our objectives have to not only be to preserve and maintain the growing momentum that the Inflation Reduction Act and many states have invested, but we need to build on it over the next 4 years. We all know the benefits of the Inflation Reduction Act. We understand the subsidies, we understand the incentives, and we understand the actual tangible benefits that have resulted from it. And I'm going to talk just a little bit about Empire Wind 1 because that is such a perfect example of how the IRA can and should work. As you know, several months ago, Equinor, which is a Norwegian oil and gas company, broke ground on a $1 billion offshore wind project with a staging area at the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal in my district. This is going to be the first offshore wind project that's going to plug directly into the New York City grid. And it's going to connect clean energy from the New York Bight to more than 500,000 homes across New York City. And what is really always striking to me is how open and forthright Equinor is about how this project happened. And it happened over a long period of time. But it could not have happened without the Inflation Reduction Act. And the folks at Equinor are very open about that those subsidies were essential to getting this deal done. It's created already more than 1,200 jobs. It's moving very quickly, really growing. And many of those jobs go to members of the local community. And in addition to many of those good-paying union jobs, Equinor has also invested $5 million in an offshore wind ecosystem fund and another $5 million in an offshore wind innovation hub, which are both meant to engage the local community, build the workforce, and grow the industry. The economic benefits alone to the local community are really immense. And it's not just my district in Blue, New York that has seen the similar economic benefits from the IRA. Red states around the country have also been reaping these benefits. As an example, in just 5 southern cities, Birmingham, Alabama, Knoxville, Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee, Columbia, South Carolina, and Brunswick, Georgia, the IRA has provided more than $572 million in federal funding, and with millions more in the pipeline. In Memphis, the city government received $670,000 to install solar panels throughout their facilities. This is the first solar installation on a public building in the area, and it serves as a pilot project to establish best practices for rooftop solar installations at public facilities. And while it may sound small, this project will provide valuable insights for future initiatives, and which are going to be essential as the energy-consuming data centers sprout up around the country. In Columbia, South Carolina, the city plans to use an $8.7 million grant to develop municipal solar and smart surface projects and establish a pool of matching funds to incentivize local investment that will lower energy costs for residents across the city. And that's how this has to work. It has to be a public-private partnership. There is no way that we are going to build the green energy revolution without cooperation from the government and the private sector, where the government is providing the incentives and subsidies for the private sector, and many of you, to invest successfully in this industry. And it's worth noting that states with Republican leadership account for 57% of all U.S. battery cell manufacturing capacity, 59% of all solar cell and module production, 95% of all hydrogen production capacity, and 83% of all carbon capture capacity in the United States. But unfortunately, if you listen to some of the rhetoric from Donald Trump and other Republicans in Congress, these subsidies and investments in the IRA may be on the chopping block. But it doesn't have to be this way, and it should not be this way. Now, for me and many of my Democratic colleagues, the appeal of renewable energy, of course, includes the significant benefits to our environment. But the case for clean energy makes itself, even if you set aside all of the climate benefits. We don't have to engage in this debate about climate change being a hoax or not. Scientists understand, of course, that it is real, but we don't need to make that case in order to get bipartisan cooperation for renewable energy. Because the economic, national security, and geopolitical rationale for clean energy is in and of itself enough to attract Republican support and get bipartisan communication. Now, as Empire Wind 1 shows, the offshore wind industry will create tens of thousands of good-paying, often unionized jobs. And then according to an estimate from NYSERDA, New York State alone will need about 10,000 offshore wind workers in the next few years, with an average salary of about $100,000. Now, name me a politician of any party who doesn't like creating jobs for their constituents. I often also hear my Republican colleagues using the term energy independence. Now, they often use that term to justify additional drilling for oil so that, in theory, the United States can produce enough oil to to support all of our energy needs. But that's not really energy independence. The only real way to have complete and total energy independence is to make our energy here that does not rely on influences from foreign governments and foreign adversaries. Because even if we do drill enough oil to provide all the energy that we need, we still rely on a global oil market driven by our foreign adversaries such as Russia, Iran, and China. And this significantly complicates our geopolitical relationships, and it compromises our national security if we have to consider the cost of oil, the price of oil, as we are navigating other conflicts and other issues. Now, China unquestionably recognizes the opportunity for renewable energy. The Chinese government has been pumping billions of dollars into their offshore wind growth plan. And China now accounts for about half of the world's offshore wind generation capacity. If China dominates the offshore wind industry globally, it will allow it to spread its world vision, which is not democratic, around the world, from Asia to Africa to South America. That jeopardizes our own national security, as our economic alliances with developing and emerging countries is essential to spreading our influence, to spreading our democracy, to spreading stability throughout the world. And as I mentioned with Empire Wind 1, European countries have seen the vision for a future powered by offshore wind. In 2020, the EU accounted for approximately 80% of global offshore wind capacity. Yes, they still sell oil, but their investment in this nascent and growing industry will also help them corner the market as it becomes more lucrative, which it most certainly will. Now, you may call me crazy, but I see a future where it's not just European oil and gas companies that recognize the opportunity in green energy, but also American oil and gas companies. But in order for that to happen, we have some work to do. We have to ensure that the government at every level is laying the foundation, creating the infrastructure, and streamlining the permitting and licensing process so that additional investment in offshore wind makes economic sense. The work that you all do in this room is vital to that goal. Research and development, including technological advances, will boost efficiency, and it will reduce both the risks and the costs of offshore wind projects. Right now, offshore wind projects are simply too cumbersome and expensive to generate a return on investment that makes it profitable. And as just one example, Empire Wind 1 took 7 years from the time the lease was granted to the groundbreaking earlier this year. That is simply not sustainable, both economically, as the costs have dramatically increased over the last 7 years, but also to meet our ambitious clean energy goals. So in addition to technological advancements developed by many of you in this room, we in government have a lot of responsibility. We must streamline the permitting and licensing process while also investing in transmission infrastructure in order to make clean energy profitable for the private sector and ultimately reduce energy costs for consumers by who will create the necessary demand. Environmental reviews and regulations are absolutely essential, but we must remember that we aren't drilling another oil well. It should not be lost on us that some of the delays to projects designed to address climate change are a result of regulatory reviews ostensibly to address climate change. Even the National Audubon Society recognizes this. And although the wind turbines in the ocean create significant risks for birds, the Audubon Society has become a big supporter of offshore wind because the risk of bird extinction is much greater from continued climate change than it is from the risk of turbines. So if we can shorten the time from lease to grid connection, improve the transmission so clean energy can efficiently power our homes and office buildings, and reduce the cost to build these projects, then I see a world in which even the American oil and gas companies will see the light. Well, at least a boy can dream, right? But even if my optimistic view of the future does not match reality, and even if the next administration does roll back federal subsidies and incentives for renewable energy, there's a lot of work that can still be done. The states must continue, each individual state, and I'm proud to be from New York, where NYSERDA and Governor Hochul are leading this, must continue the work to create the legal and regulatory framework to facilitate clean energy development, while also investing in the transmission infrastructure so that we can get clean energy on the grid. And I'm grateful for Governor Hochul, NYSERDA, New York City, that they've demonstrated an unwavering commitment, even in the face of adversity, where some of the projects have had to be literally canceled because of some of the manufacturing difficulties, some of the supply side difficulties. But the NYSERDA, New York, will continue to push and to lead, and we hope that every other state can join us and follow. Global demand for renewables is going to continue to grow, and we simply cannot allow ourselves to fall behind. The United States can and must win the race in technological development. This is not only vital for our own economic dominance, for promoting our own economic benefits around the world, but it is essential for our national security. And there are big challenges, no doubt. The stakes are high. But this is why I ran for Congress, to find solutions and get results in any way possible. If we can expand clean energy without even mentioning the environment, great. We get what we want, regardless of how we do it. The result is all that matters. And so with the brilliant minds and intrepid entrepreneurs sitting right here in this room, paired with the right message and the right government investment, I am confident that the offshore wind industry will continue to blossom in America, no matter who is president. So we will not give up. Let's get to work, and let's get this done. Thank you.
Thank you again, Congressman Goldman, for your inspiring remarks and for joining us today. I'm now pleased to introduce Congressman Bobby Scott of Virginia, who will provide some pre-recorded remarks with us. Congressman Scott has represented Virginia's 3rd Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives since 1993. Prior to his service in Congress, he served 15 years in the Virginia General Assembly. He also served in the Massachusetts National Guard and the United States Army Reserve, and is a graduate of Harvard College and Boston College Law School. A proud advocate of offshore wind, Congressman Scott helped secure funding for the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Commercial Project and introduced the American Offshore Wind Opportunity Act to develop the nation's maritime and shipbuilding workforce to meet the growing demand of the offshore wind industry. We're fortunate to have Congressman Scott with us today, and please join me in welcoming him as we bring up his remarks.
Hello, and thank you to the National Offshore Wind Research and Development Consortium for inviting me to speak and for hosting this symposium to highlight the critical need for offshore wind. I have the pleasure of representing Virginia's 3rd Congressional District in the Hampton Roads region, where we see the benefits of offshore wind firsthand. Dominion Energy is currently building the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project off the coast of southeastern Virginia. This will be the largest offshore wind installation in the United States. Not only will this project supply power for up to 660,000 homes, but it also creates more than 1,000 good-paying jobs to support ongoing operations once it's completed. Hampton Roads has cultivated an environment that allows for offshore wind to thrive, and other industry leaders are now looking to the region to expand their offshore wind businesses. Earlier this year, LS Greenlink announced plans to build a $681 million subsea cable manufacturing facility in our region that will bring more than 330 high-paying jobs with it. This facility will supply cables to offshore wind projects along the East Coast and help the United States meet its climate goals. These projects would not have been possible, though, without the enactment of the Inflation Reduction Act. Included in the IRA was a bill that I introduced with several of my colleagues to create tax incentives to increase the domestic green energy supply chain. To date, $4 billion has been allocated under this tax credit program to support over 100 projects across 35 states, like LS Greenlink's subsea cable manufacturing in my district, which will be able to take advantage of nearly $100 million in tax incentives. This key legislation has opened the doors to public-private collaboration, and through it we have set our economy up for success for years to come. As the new administration takes control of the White House, we have to work to protect these provisions and the thousands of jobs associated with the industry. The future of offshore wind and many other renewable energies rely on having this support as we move away from fossil fuels. And something that gives me hope for this future is my work as the co-chair of the Congressional Offshore Wind Caucus. This bipartisan group of members came together earlier this year because we recognize the importance of safeguarding this energy source. Offshore wind will provide affordable, clean energy to communities across the country, and I look forward to working with my colleagues to ensure its future success. So thank you again for inviting me to speak, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the symposium.
Okay, well, thank you to Congressman Scott for providing us with those great remarks. It's now my turn to welcome you to our symposium. Again, I'm Lindy Heiss-Dutton, and I'm the Executive Director of NOWRDC. Thank you again to Julie, Jeff, Bob, Congressman Goldman, and Congressman Scott for your opening remarks and for helping us set the stage for the symposium today. I'd also like to thank everyone in attendance for your participation and your contributions to the advancement of offshore wind. Your presence here reflects the growing momentum and the collective drive to advance offshore wind energy in the United States and beyond. We're really looking forward to the thoughtful discussions we'll have over the next 2 days. I am one of the newer members of NOWRDC, and this January will be 2 years since I've had that privilege to join this organization. Thank you, Bob, for reflecting on our journey to get where we are today and for noting some of the successes of NOWRDC and all of our collective efforts, including those of everyone attending our symposium in person and online, to build this new industry in the U.S. I want to thank Bob again for his leadership as the founding president and board chair. We would not be where we are today without Bob's leadership and support and the collective efforts of the founding team. Before we dive into today's agenda, I want to take a moment to reflect how far we've come and what lies ahead. Offshore wind in the U.S. has transitioned from being an ambitious idea to a critical component of our clean energy future. What we're seeing today, projects scaling up, investments coming in, and public support growing, is the result of decades of research, innovation, and relentless advocacy. NOWRDC was founded with a simple yet powerful idea that collaboration across states, industries, and international borders is the key to unlocking the full potential of offshore wind. The discussions we'll have today embody that spirit. Through the strong foundation built by our early partners, NOWRDC has grown into a globally recognized organization. We're proud of what we've accomplished over the last 6 years and our ability to support the development and implementation of critical R&D needs, technology innovation, and the U.S. workforce and supply chain. We've accomplished a lot, but there's still critical work ahead. NOWRDC was founded with the aim to help accelerate the deployment of offshore wind in the U.S., to address key challenges and maximize economic and social benefits, and reduce the levelized cost of energy of U.S. offshore wind. To date, we've been able to support 5 competitive solicitations to fund R&D, including our most recent solicitation focusing on floating offshore wind, which just closed a few weeks ago and is not on this slide because it only says 4. So those metrics do not include this solicitation that we've just closed. This solicitation, the one that we just closed on floating offshore wind, is the first time that we've been able to leverage research funding from 5 different state and federal agencies for a combined total, of up to $10.5 million of R&D. Through the hard work of NOWRDC staff and all of our co-funding partners, California Energy Commission, DOE, BOEM, NYSERDA, and Mass CEC, we've been able to build upon the vision of NOWRDC and expand the way we support offshore wind R&D in the US. It's been really inspiring to see the success of the consortium and the collaborative process that has allowed us to support all of the great work that will be discussed over the next 2 days. The consortium, through the support of our members, our board of directors, and our research and development committee, led by Jan Matheson and Olivia Burke from the Carbon Trust, has been able to leverage that collaborative mindset and support over 50 R&D projects to date. And we look forward to seeing that portfolio grow as we announce the next round of awarded projects in early 2025. This research is essential to drive innovation, reduce cost, and increase energy production as we work to meet our future energy demands. As projects in the NOWRDC portfolio have started closing out, we've been able to build upon our partnership with the Carbon Trust to model the impacts that some of the innovations supported by our funding could realize for the US offshore wind industry. We're incredibly pleased to show that this modeling effort has demonstrated that deploying these innovations can lead to both reductions in LCOE and increases in annual energy production. I hope you will join us at lunch today, where Julian Fraze from our team will discuss the highlights of this pivotal report, and Crowley will spotlight their completed NOWRDC project that was able to create real impact in the US offshore wind industry. These early successes demonstrate the importance of innovative R&D, and we intend to update our analyses and share more impacts of our work as more projects wrap up over the coming years. As NOWRDC transitions into the next phase of our organization, we've been able to pilot novel ways to support R&D and innovation in the future. Over the past few years, we've built upon the vision of the founders of NOWRDC and piloted new programs. We convened our first joint industry project, leveraging public and private funds, where participants from Shell, Total, RWE, DOE, BOEM, BSEE, and Maryland have been able to support research being led by NREL, advancing state-of-the-art in modeling farm-to-farm wake impacts. Understanding the long wake phenomenon, particularly for the unique US East Coast atmospheric conditions, is crucial to avoid potential unnecessary power losses between neighboring lease areas in the future. As such, a key aspect of this program has been connecting with BOEM to provide data from these advanced simulations that can be taken into account during the lease area planning process. In early 2025, NOWRDC will be releasing 2 reports that highlight the smart power region's existing offshore wind capabilities and identify supply chain investments that could most effectively leverage these resources and provide the greatest benefits both the participating states and the offshore wind industry. These reports mark the completion of a research project that has been a partnership between NREL and the smart power states of Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina, with participation from Delaware as well. This collaboration provides a framework for the region to cooperatively support offshore wind energy and the accompanying supply chain and workforce. We look forward to discussing more about these projects and the strategic collaborative efforts of our state members and other partners throughout today. We've also partnered with Innovate UK to release a joint US-UK solicitation to bolster international research partnerships, supported by funding from our state members from Maryland, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. For the first time, NOWRDC has forged direct collaboration between US and UK researchers to address globally important offshore wind R&D. We hope to build more international collaboration in the future and look forward to the discussion with our international collaboration panel this afternoon. And we've partnered with Equinor, the Urban Future Lab at NYU, and New York City EDC to build the Offshore Wind Innovation Hub in Brooklyn to support new technologies for offshore wind. In the 2 years since its inception, The hub has already gained notoriety for its ability to build innovative programming and strong networks connecting innovators, local partners, investors, and industry to foster demonstration opportunities, safety awareness, knowledge transfer, innovation, and job creation. We've invited this year's cohort to participate in tomorrow's panel discussions, and I encourage you to attend tonight's reception to see pitches from each of these innovative companies, as well as test your knowledge with some offshore wind trivia. We're excited to welcome Jack Fritzinger, the new interim director of the Offshore Wind Innovation Hub, who has graciously agreed to MC the competition. We're also working closely with members of the consortium to build upon all of the work NOWRDC has supported to date and identify key research areas and challenges and priority topics as we move into the future. If you've attended our symposium before, you might notice that the agenda is a little bit different than previous years. This year, day one, will focus on high-level mission, the high-level mission of NOWRDC's work, spotlighting collaboration with government and industry, and strategies to continue our collective work. Day two will take deep dives into key topic areas within offshore wind. Panels will explore the latest developments and future needs around transmission, environmental monitoring and wildlife impacts, workforce development, and more. As we work to share the insights from our work, I welcome your input and ideas on how the consortium can support these areas in the future. We're here to move our collective goals forward. As part of that, in 2025, we also plan to publish the next iteration of NOWRDC's R&D roadmap, which is our overarching technical guidance document for R&D, which we've updated roughly every 2 years to respond to the rapid changes in offshore wind. We welcome your thoughts and suggestions on Roadmap 5.0 and how this can best support our collective R&D needs in the future. As we look forward to the next 5 years, we should celebrate the successes of offshore wind, especially as we see the first commercial scale projects come online. But we need to acknowledge that significant work is still needed. Offshore wind is central to meeting our energy goals, but we must accelerate progress to build a resilient, reliable, and sustainable energy future as energy demand grows. We've built an impressive pipeline of offshore wind projects, both with the commercial scale projects coming online and those under construction, and many more in the pipeline in the future years. We must work together to keep the momentum growing. We look forward to working with all of you to collectively focus on needs such as developing scalable solutions to meet our growing demand for domestic energy, creating innovative solutions for energy development that also protect ecosystem services, addressing our grid integration challenges to ensure offshore wind projects deliver power reliably, and building workforce capacity to support an offshore wind industry that generates high-quality, well-paying jobs and allows the U.S. to be a global leader in offshore energy innovation. We have an exciting opportunity to work strategically to expand our innovation models and continue to leverage public-private partnerships to explore new collaborative mechanisms to support R&D. Together, we can build programs that maximize the use of U.S. materials and labor, that increase efficiency and cost effectiveness in offshore wind development, and then enhance the resiliency of U.S. energy infrastructure. The progress we've made at NOWRDC and throughout the offshore wind industry in the last few years is inspiring, but we need to work together to keep that progress going. The next 5 years will be critical to meet our nation's energy needs and economic goals. As we go into the next 2 days, I encourage you all to focus on the opportunities along with the challenges and the creative solutions for the road ahead. You will hear from a variety of speakers on diverse topic areas, all working diligently to build this new industry. Thank you all for your participation and for your commitment to building our collective vision for the future. As I close, I want to again thank all of our speakers this morning, Julie, Jeff, Bob, Congressman Goldman, and Congressman Scott. I want to thank all of you for joining us today, whether in person here in Washington, D.C., or joining us online. I'd like to extend a special thank you to our panelists, moderators, and organizers who have worked tirelessly to make this symposium a success. I'd also like to thank Johns Hopkins Bloomberg Center for hosting us this week in this beautiful building, and for all your help setting up this event. Most importantly, I would like to take a moment to thank NOWRDC's outstanding staff, Christine, Corey, Julian, Mel, Julia, and Skyla, our intern, who likely greeted you at the registration desk. I'm incredibly fortunate to work with them every day, and all the credit for this event goes to them. Thank you all for your hard work and for being such a great team. Thank you for your participation in this event and for your dedication to the work that we do. And now, I'd like to bring up our Senior Program Manager, Corey Groenveld, to set the stage and review the agenda and some logistics for the next 2 days. Thank you.
All right, hi everyone. Thank you, Lindy, and thank you to all the incredible speakers we've had this morning. Thanks to all the speakers and moderators yet to come. I also want to give a big thank you to Johns Hopkins University for hosting us. So for those I haven't had the chance to meet yet, I'm Corey Grunwald. I'm a senior program manager here at NOWRDC, and I've been a part of the team organizing this symposium. It's so exciting to see all of the in-person attendees and all of the virtual attendees as well. For those of you who've attended our symposium previously, you might notice some changes to the agenda this year. As Lindy mentioned, NOWRDC has grown and our strategic vision is evolving. While we're still highlighting the results and insights from our offshore wind R&D projects, we also want to foster connections across the many sectors within offshore wind, encourage strategic thinking about how we collaborate, and build relationships that extend beyond this event. You'll see that day one, today, will focus on the strategic vision, reflecting on how we've been working together so far, taking stock of what we've accomplished, and critically thinking about how we can more effectively work together to shape the future of offshore wind research and development. Tomorrow, day two, will more closely resemble previous symposiums, with technical sessions dedicated to R&D projects and also startups that are working on lowering the cost of offshore wind, reducing environmental impacts, improving safety, and enhancing domestic manufacturing and workforce opportunities. And now I'd like to take just a few minutes to go over some logistics for today and tomorrow. So first, the in-person and virtual event agendas and Wi-Fi details are on the back of your badge. They've also been shared with all in-person attendees via email, so it should be in your inboxes, and we'll also display it on screen during session breaks. So yeah, the best way to access the full event agenda is on our main event webpage, and then addressing Q&A. So for audience Q&A during applicable sessions, we'll be using Slido online, and this will help us seamlessly gather questions from both the in-person and the virtual audience. We'll also have that on screens and accessible on our main event webpage, and you can easily access it on your phone, tablet, or laptop when we get to those sessions that have audience Q&A. And then, yeah, taking a quick look at today's agenda, after this opening keynote, we'll have a coffee break here in the lobby, and then we'll return to the theater for the state keynote panel focused on policy perspectives for offshore wind R&D. And then after that session, we'll all move up to the 8th floor so we can enter or exit the theater, then go to the elevator lobby around the corner. If you have any trouble finding your way or troubleshooting Wi-Fi, needing a quiet place to take a meeting or anything like that, just find one of us NOWRDC staff. We have blue badges, so we should stand out a little bit, and we're here to help however we can. And then, yeah, looking ahead to tomorrow, we'll start the day with breakfast at 8:30 a.m. here in the lobby again. And then after the session in the theater, we'll be on the 9th and 10th floors tomorrow. So yeah, thank you all for being here, whether in person or online. We're thrilled for the conversations and insights ahead. And now we'll take a short break and resume here at 11 a.m. Eastern. Thank you all.
would you like us to